Isn't it wonderful when government makes us safe? It feels so good to read the headline, "Keeping New Yorkers Safe. Governor Hochul signs legislation to strengthen public safety and make our streets and subways safer." That is, until you realize she's talking about government spying on your 3D printer. Yes, it's a, quote, "first in the nation law to crack down on illegal homegrown 3D printed guns." Yeah, quote, "Highlights of Governor Hochul's public safety budget priorities include cracking down on the scourge of illegal 3D printed ghost guns and DIY machine guns, investing in new crime-fighting technology, supporting law enforcement officers and first responders, safeguarding New York's roads and subways, enhancing its emergency preparedness response systems, and protecting New Yorkers' religious freedom and safety." No, I'm not reading from a satirical site about it. This is from the governor's own press release. They're requiring 3D printers sold in New York to be equipped with, quote, "basic technology that prevents the unlicensed, illegal production of lethal firearms and firearm parts." You know, technology that doesn't exist. Quote, "Following the implementation of the resulting regulations, state law will allow for recourse against any actor who sells a 3D printer in New York without equipping it with such technology." Meanwhile, traffic in New York gets even more crowded as people hop the border to buy their 3D printers. Oh, and there's this, quote, "criminalize the unlawful possession, sale, or distribution of blueprints that allow the printing of illegal guns and gun parts and the manufacture of 3D printed firearms." Yeah, blueprints. As in designs. As in constitutionally protected speech. Good luck stopping those downloads from the Pirate Bay. All to shut down what the nutcases at Everytown for Gun Safety calls the plastic pipeline of DIY firearms. And they're so confident that what they're doing is right that, instead of bringing it as its own bill that would actually have a debate on the floor, it was slipped into the state budget in the Public Protection and General Government article. That made it part of an all-or-nothing vote on the entire state budget. The law's text requires that, quote, "a three-dimensional printer will not proceed to print any print job unless the underlying three-dimensional printing file has been evaluated by a firearms blueprint detection algorithm and determined not to be a printing file that would produce a firearm or illegal firearm parts." That sounds awfully like an AI to me. So if the AI hallucinates that it's a gun part, your printer won't print it. Which means anything that could easily be mistaken for a gun, including a movie prop or an airsoft, or a water pistol for that matter. And remember, you're not printing a gun, you're printing parts. So which parts do you ban? Do you ban Tesla valves? Even though they're also used in applications large and small, from jet planes to cell phones? Do you ban pistol grips, even though they're used on cordless drills and other appliances? The law references STL files. STL files are just a bunch of triangles. How do you match that to every single gun part without also including innumerable other benign parts? And most of the things that would define the part are never seen by the printer anyway. There's open source software that looks at the STL files and translates it into G-code, which tells the printer how to move. All the printer knows is the move command it's obeying at the current moment. And if you do target the software, well, it's open source. People can just remove the offending code and use it anyway. So what are they going to do? Make open source 3D printing software illegal? It also authorizes the Division of Criminal Justice Services to maintain the blueprints and algorithms, which means the government will be looking into what your printer prints and have direct control over it. And how many of you think this is going to stop there? Remember back in the Obama years when we covered how much Apple had the Democrats in their back pockets, that they got CBP to seize at the border Bluetooth earpieces that competed with AirPods? So what if you decide you want to print a case or other accessory for your iPhone and Apple hits the ceiling because you didn't pay them the license for it? Do those blueprints get added to the list? What about other things government doesn't like, such as pipes? Or any part that would otherwise require a government inspection? Maybe a simple outlet box? That wasn't made to code! Yeah, we saw recently how much those authorities will do to protect the profitability of their building and electrical codes. What we're talking about here is the state putting a filter between owners and the hardware they paid for. You can't use the thing you bought unless government approves of how you use it. This is not a gun control bill. It's a printer control bill. The EFF called it censorware and said, quote, "We and other experts have already pointed out that this algorithmic print blocking is simply unfeasible and will only serve to stifle competition, free expression, and privacy. While most detrimental to the creative communities lawfully using these printers, every New Yorker will be impacted by this blow to innovation. A journalist reporting on 3D printed guns, a researcher studying printable firearms, an artist incorporating parts into a new work commenting on gun culture. Under these provisions, merely sharing a print file with any of them could result in criminal charges, even if no one involved intends to assemble a firearm. Where are the remediations and exemptions for exceptions and false positives? The law doesn't even mention false positives, and the only exception it acknowledges is for a licensed gunsmith. This needs to be pointed out yet again. The excuses gun control nutbars give are all lies. First, they said that they could ban sawed-off shotguns and others in the 1930s because they weren't military weapons, and so citizens didn't need them as part of a militia. Then they said that it was military-style weapons that need to be banned. But through it all, they used two main excuses. The first was gun sales by big manufacturers, which they said they could regulate under the Commerce Clause. It was just about commerce and taxation, they said. Then they said it was because manufacturers were marketing their weapons of war to violent people, making them responsible. In other words, it's all the fault of the gun manufacturers. And every step along the way, they emphasized that homemade guns were actually okay, since that's largely what the militia used during the Revolutionary War. You didn't really have the Industrial Revolution by that point, so they say homemade guns were always constitutionally protected. Now, with 3D printers, homemade guns are called ghost guns, and they're the worst. But I'm sorry, your rights don't cease to exist just because they become easier to exercise. The fact is, this was always about banning guns. All guns. Always. And one more truth to remember. It's not really about gun control. It's just about control. It's about spyware and the destruction of open source software.